Vi är spelskaparna.
Välkommen till Spelskaparna, podcasten om personerna bakom spelen. I det här avsnittet så är det faktiskt första gången som jag gör en intervju på engelska. Och det blir med Dave Mervik från Tarsier Studios i Malmö. Dave Mervik är narrative designer där och berättar om hur det är att skriva för spel och hur man bygger världar för spel. Detta och mycket mer blir det nu, för nu kör vi igång. Welcome, Dave, to Spelskaparna.
Thank you.
Actually, the first time I'm going to do the interview in English, so
okay.
It's going to be interesting.
I apologize to all your listeners for that.
No, I think it's going to be great. But on that note, like, because you're from England, right?
Yes, I am, yeah.
And usually people I interview in this series, like maybe 90% of them, started off their interest in gaming through the Commodore 64.
Okay.
But maybe, since you're not from Sweden, maybe you started off with something else.
Yeah, I started off with the Acorn Electron, actually. I can't remember what came first. It was, the old Nintendo Game & Watch devices like Parachute and Donkey Kong and stuff. It was around that time, so it was that and the Acorn Electron, which kind of really got me into it. But I think probably when I got my first console, which was the Sega Master System, then I
were hooked.
Lost my mind. Then my parents started to worry about me coming out shaking after playing Wonder Boy 3. So yeah, that was the end of everything.
Was Sega a big thing in the UK?
Yeah, it was. I never realized at the time that I was kind of missing out on the whole Nintendo rites of passage that people had. For me, it was like all my mates had like Segas and up to the Mega Drive and all that sort of thing. But looking back now, I'm like, I kind of sniffed at people who had Nintendos, and now all these things, these classic formative experiences that people have had. I'm like, damn it, I kind of backed the wrong horse there, I think.
But how did you end up in the gaming industry? What was your first gig?
That was at Warthog in Manchester, the now defunct Warthog. It was kind of a mistake, to be honest, because I hadn't had a plan to get in the games industry. My brother he worked at a place called DID in Warrington, which is also now gone. So it's probably, I think me and my brother are cursing games studios. But he would come back with these stories. He was working on games like Wargasm, I think, and I think it was F-22. He'd come back and telling me these stories about, what he'd been doing in his work day. I'm like, what can you do that at work? That sounds like fun. So I kind of like, that's just got stored away somewhere in the back of my mind. And then I went and did a degree in English and I did my master's and all this. And I had no plan, I had no idea what I was doing it for other than I loved it. And then I came out and I was like, shit, I haven't got a plan. I don't know what to do. And my brother got me 2 weeks work experience at Warthog. It was just something to do with my time. And then I ended up staying there for 3.5 years as a tester at Warthog. So that was the beginning of everything, really.
And when you say tester, you were like gameplay
QA,
testing?
Yeah. So it was mostly, at that company, it was mostly rally games. He did like Rally Championship game, Richard Burns Rally, Mace Griffin, Bounty Hunter, and then a whole bunch of other stuff like work for hire, like Looney Tunes based stuff.
Okay.
So yeah, it was kind of a big melting pot of different games there.
What would you say makes a good game tester, QA?
Back then, I think it was patience, because we didn't work looking at it now, it's it's very kind of rigorous and kind of structured approach taken, and I think rightly so as well, with test plans and everything like that. But we didn't have any of that. Our QA manager had a different approach, which was just sort of getting you to understand the game and kind of think for yourself the kind of stuff that people wouldn't think of, where is this likely to break, what will people not do or what will people do? And I think it was a really cool approach as well, doing it that way. But yeah, it was a very soul-destroying job at times. It was also some of the best laughs, though, I've ever had. We had a really cool test team, so you kind of keep each other going through all these 24-hour days sometimes where you just get shot by the same sniper every time. There's a guy I used to work with who had me crying laughing because he just lost his rag. I think he destroyed an Xbox controller at one point because he just kept getting sniped by this thing in Mace Griffin. But that was it. Yeah, that was 24-hour session, and you can't. That's when you really need that kind of really cool team to keep each other going.
So it could be passages where you needed to survive to come to the point where the bug was or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. And they didn't have any kind of skip to this section. You had to just be a very good gamer. I think if we're doing something in Unreal now, you just quickly kind of just walk yourself to the point where that happens or whatever. But no, it was, this is right at the end and it might not be a bug. So let us know. And we're like, oh, are you kidding? So, you're almost there and then you get sniped again. Like, I'm just going to destroy everything right now.
I understand why patience.
Yeah, it is. I mean, of course you have to think about it as well and all that. But patience was definitely a virtue of the time.
But through Warthog, you also got to get some connection with Sweden, right?
Yeah, I did. That was Richard Burns' rally that I mentioned before. At one time, Warthog had another studio which was in Helsingborg, and they used to be 42-bit, and I think they were 8-odd at one point, and then they became Warthog Sweden, and they were real the experts with the rally stuff, the physics and the actual setup of the car. They were just they were amazing, and so yeah, of course they brought them in and to do it properly.
Did you work from there as well? Or?
I did, yeah. I was sent over there. This is how stupid I used to be. I mean, my boss sort of said, would you mind going over to Sweden for 2 weeks just to help out and test there? And I was like, oh, what? I was just in a real rut. I wasn't doing anything. I was just happy with my little routine and all that. And I was like, oh man, yeah, all right, but I'll as long as it's only 2 weeks. And then I got over there, and again, idiot Dave back then. I was expecting mountains and snow and goats, and I knew nothing of the world at that point. And I got here, I was like, this feels like Manchester or Liverpool or whatever. It just felt like anywhere else. Like, oh yeah, that makes more sense. So yeah, I got to Helsingborg, and it was tough. For the first week when you don't understand anyone, you don't know anyone, and all that, and you just feel very alone. But I met some really nice, friendly people. Some that I'm still friends with now, actually, and. Started having a good time, and so when my boss sort of said, would you mind staying a little bit longer, I know you didn't want to and all that, I said, all right then, and then 1 month became 2, and then I met my now wife actually in Helsingborg, and so yeah, once that started to feel like it was heading somewhere, I was also very keen to not rush back to Manchester. So I was out there for 7 months in the end, and then when I eventually had to leave, Andrea, my wife, came back with me, so we lived in England for 6 years.
Okay. And was that when did you start to work on the Lego series?
Well, I had a break. We came back, I think it was 2004, I think. And I was out of the industry for a couple of years. We moved down to Brighton, and I worked in digital marketing. It makes me shudder even saying it. But so yeah, I think once I kind of got into that, I was like, no, this is definitely a wrong turn moment. So kind of found my way back. And when we moved back up north, we were living outside Manchester, and got back in touch with some guys that I used to work at Warthog with, and they were now working at Traveller's Tales, which is the people that make the Lego game. So I think I hounded him for about 6 weeks while I was in another horrible job, the worst job I've ever done. I won't name them. I won't name them, even though I'd love to. They were awful people. But I was in my car every day, hounding Paul, this old colleague, and eventually he kind of called me in for an interview, and I got back into it. So I was like, listen, I need this solid. So yeah, that was it. And I was working. I was production assistant, so I think it was a glorified tester or dog's body, I think, for 7 months, and then. Mike Taylor, who was in TT Fusion, which is kind of like the sister company of Traveller's Tales. He gave me a shot at being a designer. So that's when I was working on like the many different Lego games for the handhelds largely. And I was back in then.
Did you have that plan? Like, for how long did you have the plan to like move up to be a designer?
I've never had a plan for anything. I really haven't. I stumble through my entire life, and it's gone all right. So I'm not going to try and plan it now. No, he just seemed into the idea. You know, I was just talking to Mike, and I was like saying, you know, I'd be kind of into it, you know, like doing something that's a bit more taxing and all that. And yeah, like I say, he gave me a shot and he eased me in, you know, not kind of, because he knew I hadn't had any formal experience, but he just got a guy called Nolan, who's also really, really good teacher. He kind of taught me the basics and how these Lego games work, and, you know, just got me going through the different processes. And then, yeah,
do you remember what kind of challenges you got when you were new to
when I was new, I think, I don't know if it's the standard, but they put me on camera passes and stud passes. So it's just kind of like setting up the cameras so that they kind of feel right. You know, people like more experienced designers will have set up the levels, you know, and all the different kind of puzzles and stuff they do. But you need to have the kind of right camera angle. So if you hit a wall or if you kind of walk in different areas, then that the camera's kind of following the player in the right way. And that kind of taught me a lot about how the editor worked for all that stuff. And same with placing the studs in kind of fun ways. It was very gentle beginning, but again, it's like you just hit these kind of small challenges, and that lets them teach you a little bit more about stuff. And then once you're ready for that, then they can say, do you fancy, you know, try and set up your own puzzle? Now you know enough to do that. So I mean, you learn throughout, I think, as a designer. So everyone helps each other. So I mean, I didn't know everything once I got given my own level, but I knew enough to have a go.
And eventually, I guess you had put quite a lot of hours into it, and then you had like the experience too.
Yeah, exactly. And like I say, I mean, there was a lot of really, really talented people there and smart people. So I mean, if they hear you tearing your hair out, then you know they'll come over and give you a hand and stuff like that and that. But you know, there's someone there who'll teach you a little bit about scripting, and someone else will teach you a little about this and all that and stuff. But I mean, the thing there was, though, that it was all like in-house tech. So as good as you got there, you didn't know industry standards in the same way. So that was I think it gave me a false sense of confidence, you know, like to go somewhere, like to try something like Unreal or Unity. It was like, yeah, I can do scripting, I can do this, like that. What's this? This isn't what I know and stuff. So I think it makes a lot of sense for those games because things just need to kind of work and go really kind of efficiently. But yeah, I think I had to start learning again when I wanted to do anything else. But I mean, it was good in the sense Lego Rock Band was the first time I actually got a chance to do writing because they knew I wanted to be a writer as well. And obviously, you know, the Lego games back then were silent. so I didn't have that much opportunity. But when Lego Rock Band came up, they needed blurb, they needed kind of like loading screen texts and all these kind of different things, which I could kind of have a little bit of fun with and all that. And yeah, that was kind of my first actual go at being a writer in an official capacity, so that was a lot of fun. Did
you do that like in parallel with the design, or
no? That on that game, that was my job. There was so much content. That's a horrible term, but there's so much of that kind of stuff that needed doing. So yeah, I didn't have to listen to Ghostbusters a million times and set up the tracks for that.
Was it the dialogue as well, or was it only in between?
Yeah, no, there wasn't really any dialogue per se, as I remember. I think there was some stuff like Iggy Pop did, but I didn't get to say that, unfortunately. But no, it was all like, do you know what's cool actually? And I'd forgotten all about this because I mean, I'm not gonna like try and show off about I did loading screen text for Lego Rock Band. I think there's people out there who've got more to shout about, but it came up genuinely by accident when we were at the pub one time, and Kevin, one of our old designers, was like, "That, did you do that, man?" I was like, "That." Yeah, I was like, "I love that shit, man." That was a terrible impression of Kevin, but I was like really, really proud, like the one person who actually appreciated what I'd done in that game. So it was quite nice.
Oh, that's good. But so how did you end up working on Little Big Planet?
Accident, like everything. I didn't know that I would be working on it at the time. The time came when Andrea wanted to go back to university because she'd like left after she took studenten at like 18. And yeah, it came 6 years later. It was like, I kind of know what I want to do now. She didn't want to just go for just because people go. So after that time, she felt it was time to actually go back and put her mind to good use and stuff. So, I totally was on board with that, but I started to panic. I was like, well, what am I going to do then? So like the first thing I did was went to Wikipedia. It was like Malma game developer. And so the usual suspects came up and I'm like, I applied, but I didn't really, it wasn't something that kind of, that triggered, that sparked anything in me, But then I saw this company, Tarsier Studios, who'd done, they'd done Ragdoll Kung Fu, the Fist of Plastic one. But then I saw these kind of artworks from City Metronome, and that was it. Then I'm like, oh, I need to talk to these people, and I'd how it is. You send these CVs and the covering letters, and it's the same old crap all the time. Oh yeah, I really blah blah blah, drinking, dancing, socializing with friends, all this stuff, which doesn't mean anything. But this one time, I'm like, because everything I'd sent hadn't gone anywhere, so I thought I need to actually let them know who I am, and write to them as myself, and what I was looking for, and that I thought I'd found it when I found them, and it was the first time I ever heard back from anyone, and that was Peter Liebeck, who was our executive producer at the time, and so yeah, we spoke over like a 6-month period, so like there was big gaps in our discussions where again I started to panic, thinking maybe they don't like me, damn it, and all this. But we had a few chats, and really good chats as well, and I spoke with Matt as well, Nygren. And so I had a really good feeling about them, but until they kind of said anything happened, then I was just assuming the worst.
Well, was there any open positions, or what was the scenario?
Yeah, they were at the time. They were looking for like a senior designer, and I thought that's probably a little bit above my abilities right now. But I just thought I need to talk to them, and maybe there's something else. And yeah, little did I know that LBP Vita hadn't been announced yet, but that they very recently had a call from XDev about that, and so they were starting to look for more people. And so, like I say, over the 6-month period where we were kind of in and out of conversations, that had happened. And so they said, listen, there's another thing coming up that we think you might be good for. And so I was actually taken on as a designer with Tarsier. So for the first 7 months, I was it's fair to say I was fumbling my way through the LBP editor. I wasn't one of those people who sat with it their entire day, and we've hired some of those people now. But I could do enough to make some stuff that felt good. But probably lucky for me, they knew I wanted to be a writer, and that position came up as well during that 7 months. So I had a crack at the story for LBP Vita. And they liked it, which again was another fantastic stumble on my part. But so I think because it had gone well, they sort of asked if I'd be interested in doing that largely full time. So I was, in the beginning, I was doing a lot of story and dialogue work whilst also doing different kind of prototypes with the LBP editor, which I was, I would say satisfactory at that point. So I think I managed to get one thing in LBP Vita. I was very proud of that. But yeah.
But did you keep in touch with, because I guess there was someone at Media Molecule that had been responsible for the writing for the previous games?
Yes, someone, I think it was a contractor actually, who XDev used now and again. So I think, yeah, there was stuff that he kind of did separate stuff to me. So I think he did a lot of the like tutorial stuff. But I did all of like the in-game dialogue, and I think I did all. I don't want to be libelous here, but I think I did all of the Stephen Fry dialogue as well, as I remember, which was a super exciting moment.
Yeah, that is really cool.
Written things that come out of Stephen Fry's mouth was really nice.
Did you get to meet him or?
Over Skype, unfortunately. I didn't get to be in the same room as the man, but yeah.
Were you directing him?
I was, yeah.
That is cool.
Trying desperately not to just wither under that spotlight. But yeah, that was very surreal, just being in a room that Stephen Fry was on Skype on.
Yeah.
That was really exciting anyway. But I mean, it's not like an old friend of mine, Graham Goring, who was the writer at Traveller's Tales. He's actually been posting pictures of himself sitting with Anthony Daniels and all that when he's been doing the Star Wars stuff. So yeah, he wins still. He got to be in the room with some of his idols, but yeah.
Yeah, we'll see what happens for you over the upcoming years. So I'm interested in the process of writing for a game, because it seems it's quite different from many of the other positions. And also, like, when do you have to be doing stuff in advance of? Is it like proactive or reactive? Because I guess, like, depending on what you write, it might change like how the gameplay is.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I would say it's both, really. I mean, to take LVP as an example, the beginning, the large degree of the work was the actual getting the story feeling right, so that, you know, we need to kind of incorporate these different worlds, and we need to have a narrative that kind of encompasses those worlds, so they don't just feel kind of like held together with sticky tape. You know, it needs to be something that, like, have a setup that's going to feel natural, and that gives, like, the designers and the artists and audio and all that something to work with, and something to kind of flex their own abilities within. So I mean, that's the beginning, and that was, as I remember, it was quite a hard process, that, because you do a draft and you're like, yeah, this is all right. I wasn't happy with it, but, you know, it was a real painful birth, I think, getting to where we were, which is, you know, the story of the puppeteer and the puppets, you know, that he'd lost and all this. And I remember Pelle came out after he'd read my final draft of where we got to, and he said I'd done it, and that was a really good moment. You know, that he was really happy with where we got to. So that was like a big moment, but it'd been a real learning experience, that, like, just getting to that point.
But and that is really early on then in the production process.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of have to get to that point first before you just start writing dialogue, because otherwise it just becomes chaos. I mean, it already kind of is, because particularly with LBP, it's all about kind of getting these motifs together and getting stuff that feels good, and then rearranging it and into a level that feels really tight, and like have a nice kind of like excitement arc or whatever. And so you don't get this linear kind of story through each level until all of that kind of work is done. You know, you kind of have to be ready to change very quickly. You can have your big beats, you know, in between levels and stuff, but yeah, it was constantly changing that, and just kind of, I mean, it's nice. I don't like to be kind of done. You know, it's nice to react to what people have done and kind of think, all right, hang on, this has to change, but that's cool. We can kind of make something really nice.
But that it was some kind of document or something that you showed in the beginning, where you got
there's like a very long document of like where it starts and where it goes through, and, you know, all that stuff. And then once, you know,
some kind of overview of,
exactly, yeah. And then
is that something that many people get to read as well then,
yeah, and I had this lovely awkward moment where I had to read that to everybody. So it was like story time with Merv. While you're sitting comfortably, I'm going to read my own stuff like the true narcissist. But yeah, so I mean, you know, it's really important, that, and it's something that I don't do story time with Merv anymore. But it's like, it's still really important that everyone knows what's going on, like why we're doing what we're doing, and like get a little bit more invested in the story surrounding the levels. That, you know, otherwise it becomes very disparate and kind of a clinical. It's just a game, you know. I don't care and all that. So, but yeah, like, you know, once the overview's together, then it's just again in LBP it was a lot of requests, you know, saying, oh, I'm going to do this, I need this kind of line, and blah, 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 blah. And so I barely remember the process on that. It was really trying to keep your head above water a lot of the time and kind of making sure your stuff still felt good while lots and lots of different changes were happening, you know. And so it was like, you know, it's collaborative. People don't want to mess with your stuff, but they have to make their stuff as good as it possibly can be, and vice versa. So it probably isn't like a textbook way of how we work now, but back then it was definitely a real learning experience, you know.
And did you like hands-on add texts to the game in the editor, or how did you like deliver?
It was done through. This is going to be the boring part of the podcast because it was done through a database called LAMS. Which is as exciting as it sounds. It was just, I had a massive spreadsheet and that had all of the lines in it, and I had to create unique keys for each line and input those, and then I put the text in, and then I think the designers then just put the key in the speech bubbles in LBP, and that dragged it automatically out of LAMS. So it just meant that they didn't have to do anything else. If I changed the line, it didn't affect what they had to do. That stuff was in. So it was still a joyless experience for them putting these awful keys in. But then I could kind of, like I say, it would just drag the latest text that I did out of there. So LAMS still makes me wake up screaming sometimes, like working.
It doesn't sound that fun. And were you involved anything with like the localization? Because it's translated to quite a few languages.
Yeah, it was just really kind of doing the liaising, to use a word that Bjarke would enjoy. It was liaising between the different localization regions and stuff, making sure it was all, they were getting the latest stuff and answering questions about context, because obviously when you localize things, then it changes, you know, it can change in translation. I got to use, I have a little bit of Russian knowledge, and so I actually spotted a mistake in the Russian translation at one point, and I got to tell them that I found it, so I was super proud about that.
That's good. And okay, so after the LBP stuff, what was your new thing you got to work on?
I think that was when we moved on to, we did a DLC pack for LBP, so that was where I fixed all of the things I think I'd done wrong in the actual full game. So I felt like I atoned a little bit for some of my poor editing skills, you know, just made things brief and nice and tight and stuff. So I managed to make myself sleep slightly better at night after the main game came out. But then once we'd done that, we did actually start, I think that was when we started working on the Hunger prototype, I think.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I think so. Sorry.
And that is what became Little Nightmares.
Yeah,
eventually.
It was, yeah. I mean, that was quite something that had been gestating for quite a while, you know, that kind of game. But yeah, we were working on different takes on what that game could be. Like, you know, we always came back to like Metronome, you see, like, you know, when we're thinking about ideas, like, why aren't we doing Metronome? Everyone loves it, you know, in the studio. Why is that just where it is?
And that was the game that, like, the first game Tarsier started, they got famous for that game, but it was only a demo or something.
Yeah,
like
exactly. That. It's like the best game we never made, you know, that thing. And it brought so many people to Tarsier because of it, but it never happened. And it's like, then you get that fear that, like, what if we did ever make it? Oh, maybe it wouldn't be as good, and all that panic. But no, so we just kind of, we started working on kind of gameplay ideas and story ideas and art. You know, there was different people doing different things. And I think Pelle and Jonas, did some concept art for what became the More. and then your mind starts going, and you're like, oh, so what's in there then? What could be in there? So we all just doing our things and stuff, and then we heard about like this award of funds that you could do through Emma. She knew about that Nordic Game was offering like supportive funds for new IPs, and so we suddenly had to kind of get all these ideas together and put them into some sort of a game design doc. And so we did that. We worked really, really hard to kind of isolate those things that we kind of felt were kind of unique about the stuff we were talking about, and that became the hunger concept. And yeah, we were really, really fortunate to get both the Nordic Game funding and the Creative Europe funding, which just meant that we could make it like a demo or a trailer. I think we made, and that's how we then got in touch with Bandai at Game Connection. Because I think the idea was to make this trailer and release it before our top people went to game. I think it was GDC, wasn't it? They went there so that they could talk to people, and there was something solid that they could actually talk about. This is what we would do if we could make a full game.
Is that trailer the same trailer as like you can see if you go to YouTube and
it's the hunger teaser or the hunger trailer is that one.
It makes you really excited. I think it's really great.
Yeah, it was a scary day. That I know. There was several people involved with that who were just sort of cowering in the corner of their room, just sort of like, please let this work, because.
Yeah, because you had put everything into that.
Yeah, so. Yeah. I mean, you kind of. I'd always had faith in our instincts as a studio, because I think there's so many smart, talented people here who kind of just won't let things go out if they don't feel right or if they're not as good as they can make them and stuff. And so when we first saw even the rough cut of the hunger teaser, everyone that saw it, we were like, oh, wow. We were just so like excited by it, and there was just this energy that you got from it that you don't get and it's not even a case of perspective. That I think if I had been outside the studio, I would have been just as excited as when I was in. You just knew it had something that we hadn't seen before. So yeah, we were hopeful, but until you start seeing the views on YouTube coming up, you're sort of like, please.
So, yeah, we're following that for the entire office.
Yeah, like I say, I think some people were following it with a bottle of Jameson's.
For me, when I saw it, it felt like I really liked that director. What's he called? Chonet, the French director, like Amélie and this kind of stuff. But he has made lately kind of shitty movies, so like I've lost faith in him. Right, but then I saw this one, like, okay, we have a new player in town.
Nice. Yeah. I mean, I know there's a lot of respect for Jeunet and Caro's work, like you say, the older stuff like Delicatessen and City of Lost Children and stuff. I don't think they went out to ape it. I know that's not what you suggested.
It's a new thing,
but yeah, I mean, I think it's something that a lot of people have seen. So I guess it's not something that's it's not someone you're not imagining it. You know what I mean? But like, I think it's just. I guess all those things that you love and that just come out accidentally.
Well, like just when the like you want to explore that place because it's so strange and weird, and what is this? Like it's something. It's like a mystery that you really want to dig deeper into. I would say.
I think that felt quite worrying as well, because trailers tend to feel like they just need to give you everything nowadays. Like sometimes I've seen a trailer and then I see the movie and I'm like, I've seen that already. I mean, really, you see the end of the trailer is the end of the movie. I'm like, that you ruined this now, because I don't forget things. Like my mind just keeps movie trivia in. So like I'm sitting there going, right, I haven't seen that clip from the trailer yet. Well, that's going to be the end now, isn't it? And it's destroyed it. And for us, we wanted to go dial that right back and just kind of try and intrigue people and not really show them that much. And then you had this build at the end where it just felt like the temperature was getting turned up and up and up. And that's the thing that I just loved. It was like, and then suddenly you just get that silence at the top on the water's surface, and I think they did an amazing job, the guys, with that.
And what was your role during the process of making this trailer or teaser?
With that, it was just feedback, just kind of looking at it and giving feedback. I was working with other stuff at the time, so I think this is what I mean. We don't have these kind of like sectioned off roles here, so I just wouldn't dream of standing over, like in this case it was Patrick and Pelle, standing over their shoulders saying, no, I am the story guy, do this, because they've just got a feel for it, and it's such a visual game that they're perfectly capable of absolutely nailing it, without me saying, put words in this thing or whatever it is that I do. I don't know, but no, so I wasn't part of that.
But how did you, or how have you been working on the game? Because, I mean, there is a story, but there is no words that I can remember at least.
No. It's world building, really. So it's every character and every location and every creature has a biography or a history or whatever it is. So it has to be something that kind of joins all this together. And so it's quite it was another challenge, really, that, because I was used to kind of just doing a story overview and then you get into scripting and stuff, whereas this was like you had to make that shift from like, well, no, that kind of has to be on other people now, that they tell the story because it's a visual game. And so I kind of, with Little Nightmares, I moved over to, like I say, with like lore and world building and stuff. So all these characters come from somewhere, and I think that's something I took my lead on how I did that from Pelle. His ethos with the design of like characters, and this was the same, I think, in City Metronome, is he finds the core, he finds like the essence of what this character is, what they're all about, what it is that kind of defines them, and then he just like pulls it in different directions and like amps up certain elements, so it becomes something new. It's still recognizable, but it's something new as well. It's like a new character. And so I thought that would be a really fun way to work with the lore as well, is to start with this defining characteristic, this trait, whatever it is about them, and write a story around that, and again, pull that character in different directions and amp up these things that define them, and see maybe that thread leads back in a certain direction, or maybe that one is, and it's been really, really fun to work with, I have to be honest. It's like, even though it wasn't my idea from the beginning, it's something that's translated really well and kind of has it's been really fruitful in terms of world building for however big Little Nightmares world. Well, that'll be a theme park.
I've played through it once, but I feel that if I would do it again, there is a lot of stuff that I could like explore more, because there is still like, I wonder what was really the story there, or why, because you can get a lot of clues from the environment and stuff like that.
That was always the ambition from the beginning. Again, it was kind of born of this kind of tiredness of other games that just told you everything or showed you everything, or made sure that an exposition character told you everything you needed to know so that you were always up to date with the story. That time when blah, blah, blah happened, and then I had to, that won't have any bearing on something that's about to happen. I don't know, all that sort of feels like really bad movies, traits that some games haven't quite got out of yet. We wanted to, again, dial that back like we did with the trailer, and just say, look, the story's here, but you have to work for it. You have to see it. And, if you let people know that you've put detail in the world, and you expect them to meet you in the middle somewhere, we've said time and time again, this is like an interpretive game. It's a world that has a story there, but come on, you put two and two together, you draw the lines between this stuff, and people have as well, and you get this feeling that people want that. They want to be challenged by what they play. They don't particularly want to just be told everything all the time. And so yeah, there's like loads of stuff to find, and maybe there's stuff that leads you in a different direction, because we're not making it too difficult. We're not making it too easy, I think. So I don't know. You want people to kind of get hold of something like you do with a good book. You're something that just sticks out in your mind, and you start drawing your lines between them and stuff. So there might be stuff that people that I know that other people haven't seen yet or whatever.
No, of course. And Static came out like in about the same time as Little Nightmares.
What were we thinking there?
Were you also like working on them at the same time?
Yeah. Well, it worked out quite well for me, because as the work I was doing on Little Nightmares started to wind down a little bit, because you can't just keep building worlds; it gets too big. As that started to wind down, this prototype. I don't know if I'm allowed to say what it was called. It was called Deadlock. I hope I don't get fired for that. Yeah, this other thing was kind of starting to ramp up. There was just like a couple of people working on it. It was a concept that Andreas, our CEO, had actually come up with. It was a little bit too late for the game jam. But he put it in anyway. I think he used his veto power. Said, "No, I came up with this." But yeah, so that like just started working on it. Him and Björn, and there was a handful of other people. I think had just been getting the prototype together.
And it's a virtual reality
game where your hands are stuck in like a puzzle device. So yeah, you wake up every day and you seem to be some test subject in a laboratory, and your hands are stuck in a puzzle device, and you have to basically every element of the puzzle is assigned to a button on the controller. So you have to figure out what the puzzle is, and then how you solve it, and then they sedate you again. So I mean, I at the time it had a different setup, a different kind of narrative. It was just a basic one, and we had a big chat about that, about what it could be, because it was a lot more horror back then, a bit more Saw, which is this first place you go to when your hands are stuck in something. Like, oh, it's a Saw kind of experience then, but none of us were really happy with that. And so I thought, well, why don't we make it about nothing almost? Because for me, that's a bit creepier, that you don't have a horror setup or a sci-fi setup or whatever. You just an anonymous body in a chair with an anonymous person in an anonymous room, and no one's really telling you to feel anything. And then we kind of just let you feel how you would feel if you didn't know anything. And that kind of felt really like it started to work for us then. So yeah, that was like my entire time pretty much was spent on what became Static.
Okay.
I love that game. I have to say, I'm so proud of what we all did with that game. That it's like I think we were maybe 8-10 people at most, and I don't know how many people have played it. It's not like it's not gone interstellar like we had dreamt maybe once or twice, but I just still remain utterly proud of what we went for with that game.
I would love to play it, but I don't have a VR headset.
Let's do it
at
now.
This point. Yeah, I was stuck here. But what do you think? What's your thoughts about VR in general? Like the market and.
I love it. I would only work in VR if I could, because I think the more people support it and try and do something new in it that you can't do in other formats, I think people are going to hopefully people will start to see what they're missing. Because I just feel that like we all want this thing. We all want to vanish into these other worlds. That's why we're just sitting in front of the telly all the time, you know, with your 3D glasses on or whatever it is, however you're trying to lose yourself. But there's always a screen in the way. There's always this thing that, you know, where you're looking at a screen and you're seeing someone else there, you know, even with an FPS, first-person shooter. I'm sure everyone knows that. I'm just showing off that I know what it stands for. But, you know, you're looking at the TV. If you're seeing an FPS, first-person shooter, and it's still in a frame. It's still, you know, you're still...
Yeah.
know you're in...
Breaks the illusion.
Exactly. And everyone goes on about immersion and all this, and, we need it to be more immersive and all that. And what's more immersive? And I just think, for me, it feels like the way the way forward for games. It's because the stuff that you can do in there that you can't do anywhere else unless you get full into LARPing.
Into
live action role playing. There we go. Yes. that's too Anthony. What's the word? Whatever it is.
The abbreviation master. But I thought that was really cool. I haven't played static, but with when it comes to immersion, that you really use like you're stuck in a place, and also that your hands are stuck. Then that you come really close to what you actually can feel in the VR environment.
Yeah, I mean, that felt like, again, taking my lead from what they'd come up with, for the core concept, which came from Andreas, holding the PS4 controller, going, what can I do with this? Hang on, I can do this. And that was it. That was how it was born, just turning it and rotating it and stuff. And then we put them in the chair as well. And then we decided to put a thing on their head and have an anonymous person who designed these tests sitting there and prodding you to do your best. So everything was designed to make you feel like this was aimed at you. This wasn't an avatar that that you were detached from. It was all like, yes, I'm in a chair and I have a thing on my head, and all of this was just exposing the game design for what it was and erasing that barrier as much as possible between like the player and the game world.
Yeah, and I mean, many of the VR experiences are like you teleport yourself by, and it doesn't really work super well.
Yeah, I find that really, really disorienting. But it's everyone's kind of having to solve their own problems for what they want to achieve. Like this is the best way to solve it right now. But hopefully with the next wave, then there'll be new problems solved. And again, if the tech keeps getting better and stuff, I mean, they have whole like VR experiences now where they kind of they go beyond the room space. I went to an amazing one in Japan even, and the stuff that people are trying. Hopefully it's going to coalesce and become something that will grab people, because I just think.
How was that the Japanese one that you tried?
I mean, it was a lot of it was novelty, but I think I went skydiving, and I was actually sat in a harness, and so you have the VR thing on, and then so they lift the harness up and then move you over, and then they just drop you, and there's fans coming up, and so there's kind of like real world elements in there. There was a flying carpet one, which was amazing, absolutely amazing. Me and my wife, though, both our avatars looked like Tom Selleck in Magnum era, and so we were just kind of admiring each other while on this flying carpet. But I think, all right, so it was kind of like a touristy thing, but I still think there was something there where you completely forget that this is virtual. This is something that just felt as real as can be. And so, I mean, that's not something you can have in a living room, but if you can kind of go beyond room space with this kind of super clever camera on, maybe it's something that will auto update as you go wherever you go. Yeah. I don't know. That's why I'm not a VR inventor. But I mean, I think if you can get the tether off, between you and the TV, then games can just do so much more. There's another thing that I always come back to as well, and this was from when we went to a conference in Copenhagen. And I think it was called Project Syria. I don't know if you've heard of that.
No.
But this is like a journalism in VR project where they're kind of giving people these experiences which aren't about novelty or about, kind of cheap thrills. It was like, yeah, this is a bombing that took place on the street corner in Syria, and you're going to be there and you're going to get a lot closer. I mean, it's nowhere near what you experience, but it takes people closer. And there was that, and there was another one they did, which was a awful thing, which is going to bring everyone down. But there was like some people crossing the border illegally from Mexico to the US, and someone was beaten by the border guards. I think it was beaten to death even, and someone had filmed it on their mobile phone. And what they'd done with this project is that they'd recreated that as well. And all you could do as the player is move around the scene and record a minute's worth of footage. And I think that's amazing, though, because again, that's it, giving people these experiences, bringing people so much closer to something that you would just scroll past in your daily news content absorption or whatever it is. The stuff that the world is so much closer to you now, but you feel so much more distant from it. VR is taking you there. And I think that's what I'd like to see with games is not just, here's an FPS in VR, here's a platform in VR. Let's let people connect with the world a little bit more, and give them something substantial. It doesn't have to be misery fest or anything. It doesn't have to be just worthy. And look how awful things are. You need to learn whatever. Because however amazing I think Project Syria is, it's not going to be the thing that this is going to go mass market, is it? But I still think there's something in there that people are going to react to, and you can't get that again if you sit and watch it on your screen because we're already detached from that.
Yeah.
So I think if you get people in there, then you can kind of affect them in more effective ways.
But did you like Little Nightmares? That and Static was the first two projects where you were more of an independent kind of studio. Have they been successful enough for you to be able to comfortably go forward?
Yeah, I think they've done all right. I think with Static we didn't expect to make. We hoped that people would realize what geniuses we were, and they'd just throw money and all that sort of stuff at us. But we didn't expect. I think we went in because we were so in love with the concept, and because we wanted to get experience with VR as well. But we weren't hinging on it being a million seller or anything. But it's growing, the audience for that one. I mean, everyone. What's been really rewarding is that everyone that's played it has almost universally loved it. So critically, it did really well. And I think, when you get like a boost in the sales of PlayStation VR, for example, you also see a boost in the sales of Static. And so we see also, this sounds, again, so utterly narcissistic, but we just wanted to check to see if anyone's playing Static recently on Google and stuff. And when you see a new thread on Reddit or whatever, and people are kind of going, what should I buy? Or, whatever, you see Static in there a lot. And it is genuinely lovely for us because we put so much love and effort into that game. And when people kind of appreciating it and recommending it to other people, well, like that again, it's just the feeling that your instincts aren't totally off and stuff. And we just want more people to play it. It's not about money in that respect. We just want to do what we love, and have as many people kind of play it. And so I think whatever we do next, we'll do the same again. And so we should be able to do that, I
think. When it comes to other games, and like the narrative, is there some game that you think in particular has been doing it really, really well?
I have to say, I shouldn't say this because you hear about Limbo and Inside, particularly when we're talking about Little Nightmares, you hear that reference a fair bit, which is it's no small thing, but we weren't trying for it. But I do think Inside, particularly, I think that narrative felt very good. I think, and there's a million interpretations out there. I haven't gone that deep into it, but I think the feeling it gave me, I think I liked that it felt that kind of airy. There was something, that you knew you had a sense of things going from point to point, and you just start drawing those lines between it. But I haven't sat down and kind of gone, okay, so this means this, and this is clearly this. But I was just going through it, and I was just gripped the entire time. It reminded me a little bit. There's a book I read called The Painted Bird, which is a traumatic as hell book, but I got that same feeling from it, which is just this kid going from place to place trying to find somewhere safe, and he never was. So I really, really enjoyed Inside.
I think like one thing I think Inside and Little Nightmares have in common when I've played them is this, just when you're done, that feeling of it's so dense. Like I had this really immersive emotional experience with the game, and it got me to really feel for the characters only in that short amount of time, compared to other games you play for 40 hours, but you don't really care about like.
Yeah, no, I felt that as well. I think there's another one actually, and I would have been annoyed if I'd forgotten this one. Firewatch.
Oh yeah.
I really enjoyed that, and I think with that one, it was the performances. I think those performances were amazing. I'm so used to game performances being crap, and I don't know why that. I think there's a tendency for games to sound like game acting, and I switch off. I don't want to. I probably shouldn't call out particular games here because I'll be persona non grata. But I think with Firewatch, it felt like it didn't feel like game acting. It felt like acting, and I was really taken with that game, considering it's like a hiking simulator or whatever.
Yeah, but I think it also works like I quite recently played Last of Us, and I mean it's a great story in that game as well. But they still have this thing where there is a dialogue going on, but you are controlling the player and maybe are simultaneously, as there is a really emotional conversation, you also pick up some random stuff, and you don't really look at the other person you're talking to.
No,
but in Firewatch, it's like what you're doing as a player also, since they're talking on the what do you call it,
on the walkie-talkie,
all the time, it doesn't interfere with the play really. It's like
no, exactly. It's that same thing, isn't it? Of like you're detached, so you would be doing something other than talking face to face, like we did with Static. It's that same thing of like, well, yeah, it's just in your ears, so it doesn't matter. It doesn't feel like odd that you're busy sorting things out on your desk or going out for a walk, because that's how it would be in that scenario. Yeah. I thought it was great, that one. I really did. I think the weird thing is though, is at the very end, I was expecting there to be something else, because they'd created such an odd atmosphere in that game where you do start questioning the sanity of the main character. And I was expecting like a sting after the credits or something that didn't come. And I don't know if I was disappointed or kind of relieved that they hadn't done that, because I was expecting it,
Yeah.
But
I agree. I agree. The end isn't the best part, but I still think it's a really great experience.
Yeah, it really was.
Is there any way the listeners can contact you or follow you or something like that?
Yeah, generally I think we communicate via Twitter, messages or whatever. And I think if anyone wants to talk to me specifically, then they can do that through Twitter, and I always give out my email address if it's like a conversation that we want to have. But I wouldn't put it out now.
So what's your Twitter?
That is I think it's at Tarsier Studios.
And who do you think I should interview the next time from the Swedish gaming industry?
Oh, now that is a good one. I don't know if you've talked to him already, but we gave a talk on building crafting worlds at Studio just the other day, and Thomas Grip from Frictional was there, and I almost had trouble focusing on what I was about to say, because I think he was just very, very interesting guy to listen to when he gets himself onto a subject that causes him a good degree of ire. Then he was off, and I thought he was a fascinating speaker. So I think I would recommend Thomas. I'm sure he wouldn't appreciate that, but
yeah, that's great. I haven't interviewed him, so I'm gonna follow up on that one. Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Om 2 veckor kommer nästa avsnitt, och då blir det Andreas Skoglund som gäst. Andreas jobbade länge på DICE, men har sedan några månader tillbaka varit vd för VR-studion Cortopia. En studio som faktiskt har sitt kontor på Åsegatan 119 i samma lokaler där jag själv hade kontor för några år sedan. Fram tills dess får ni hemskt gärna gå in på Spelskaparnas Facebook-sida eller Spelskaparnas hemsida. Det var allt för den här gången. Ha det så bra.